Alrighty, the next thing that we're going to do then is we're going to configure our ESXi server with a storage network card and use that card then to connect to our NFS share and also then to the iSCSI share. Let me draw you a picture of what we're about to do. Over here we're going to draw our ESXi server. And I'm going to demo this on using server 19. And then we've got over here, we've got SAN 3 and SAN 4. Okay. So SAN 3 has an address of 10.0.0.243 and SAN 4 is 10.0.0.244. And they both have NFS shares on them, and they both have iSCSI shares on them. And we're divided up. Some of us well, we're going to use both of them. For example, let's go look at the handout here. This is where we're going to get our direction about which server to connect to. And so I find myself here, ESXi 19. I know these handouts can be really busy, but let's just try to break it down. So on ESXi 19, the information I need is going to go across all the way like this. So this column over here is for NFS, and this column over here is for iSCSI. Okay, so when I look at the chart here, then I can say this is what I need. They call it an IQN. This is the IQN value. It's like the share path that I need for ESXi 19, and the server that's going to provide my iSCSI connection is noted up here. So SAN 3, I'm going to connect to SAN 3, and I'm going to use this path to attach to my pre-configured iSCSI share. Okay, so iSCSI. Now, over in this column, then we've got our NFS information. So this is also a path, and it's an NSF path, and it's hosted on SAN 4. So notice, they're two different 10 addresses. Okay, so that's what we need to extract. So it's a big PDF with lots of writing on it, but you just need to find your server and pull off this key information from it. The other piece of information that I need is I need to go back to this, and you guys have seen this before. It's now time for me to use the value over here, this one right here. Okay. I'm demoing this on ESXi 19, and I need to know that address. That's going to be the IP address that I assign to a network card that I create just to be used for attached storage. Let's go back to our drawing. Okay, there we got it. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to come over to I'm going to create, it's virtual, but I'm going to create a storage NIC, and the storage NIC is going to be tied to the kernel. It's going to, when you think of kernel, think of the operating system. So it's not a storage NIC that's going to be used for the virtual machines we create. It's going to be used for the kernel for the purpose of creating data stores off of these two storage servers. Now they're on a 10 dot network, and so then I have to have my 10 address. So my address for 19 is 10.0.0.19, and that's a /24. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a Vm Kernel NIC used for storage, and we're going to give it a 10 address, an IPv4 10 address. We're going to let it self-configure for IPv6. We're then going to, once we've done that, we've got our part of it set up, then we're going to go into where we create our data stores, and we're going to create, first of all, in this video, we'll do the NFS, and then I'll stop it, and we'll do another video where we do the iSCSI. Okay, let's let's go do that. Oh, yeah. Before I leave this here, I think we covered everything. Okay. In our case, there is a choice between when you do NFS shares between using NFS version 3 and NFS version 4. It has a lot to do with your server. And our servers are older. I think I've got one of them open here. I do. And these are Thecus boxes. We have two of them. This one is 3, and then 4 is of the same vintage. It just has 12 hard drives. I think this one has the 8. And these are where we create. They're really great for iSCSI and for NFS, and NFS is done under shared folders. Okay, so they're a little bit older, and it's recommended with this particular model that we use NFS version 3. All right, so we're good. We're good to go. Okay, let's go over to our server then, and let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I need to do then is I need to go into networking. You can see here we've got these different tabs across the top. But I select Vm Kernel NICs, and I've got this one, which is default post-installation. It's the one that allows me to go through the web interface and connect to my server. What I need to do is I need to add another one. So I'm going to add a Vm Kernel NIC. Now, it's different than adding a NIC that will be used by virtual machines. I know I mentioned that, but I want to emphasize that when you add something to the kernel, you're tying it to the operating system, and then so it's like the operating system has control over it, not virtual machines. Pretty straightforward process here. There's a lot of automation here. You can see it doesn't allow us to choose much of a port group here. I guess it does. Okay, I was thinking it didn't. I'm going to call it storage because that's what it's intended for. It needs to be on the virtual switch, which is tied to the kernel or the management interface, and for us that's vSwitch 0. For all of us, that's vSwitch 0. I come down here, I'm going to do IPv4, but I'm going to do a static assignment. When I do that, it gives me the option to expand the box, and here's where I type in my 10 address, 10.0.0.19, and that is a /24. Okay, and when we look at the boxes here, that's it. We're not going to check anything else. Let's go ahead and create this, and let's go back and look at it. So there it is. I want you to notice something here, that it also auto-configured. Well, it says auto-configure no, but it gave us the link local IPv6 address, and that's fine. That's fine. So what we've done now is we've added a virtual network card to our VMware operating system for the purpose of connecting to shared storage. I got to tell you that this is a little bit of, this isn't a best practice. Well, what do you mean, Randy? When you're working with production VMware servers, you dedicate a physical network card to your storage. You often also, in fact, it's best practice, you dedicate a physical network card to management and a physical network card to storage. And then you have other network cards that are used by the virtual machines. We're bending the rules here because we only have 2 physical NICs. We're having to share them. So one of these here, we're working with VMNIC 0. So VMNIC 0 is going to be our management interface. It's a network card used for managing, connecting to our VMware server. It's also the network card being used on the 10 network for storage, and it's also a card if we needed to connect to ClassNet. So if you think about what I just said, we're talking about when you get a physical server in a production environment for your customer, there's typically 2 network cards that the virtual machines never use. One of them is dedicated to managing the ESXi server, and the other one is dedicated to if you have shared storage on a storage area network. So we're bending the rules here by having this one network card carry all those responsibilities. So the other question you have is, well, Randy, what about your servers in your server room? Do they follow this best practice? And yes, they do. We have a dedicated network card for management And then we have a dedicated, actually 2 dedicated network cards for, they're 10 gigabit network cards for the storage area network. And they're redundant. Yeah, 2 10 gigabit. Okay, all right, so we've done that, and that's great. So now we can shrink networking or switch our focus over to storage. So here's what we've done so far. We've got our data store 1 and data store 2. And now what we want to do is we want to create that NFS store. So we go up here to new data store, and there's a separate wizard here for NFS data stores. So we go ahead and select that and click next. Okay. The name of our data store is NFS store. I'm asking us all to name them the same thing. The server, you got to pull this off of that PDF, remember. Some of us it'll be 10.0.0. For me, let me checking mine. For NFS, I'm 244. Some of us will be .244 and some of us will be .243. And then for the share name, I'm copying that off of the PDF. So let me do that. I'm copy, right click, and paste it in there. Okay. So that's it. And let's just be sure we didn't get a leading space on that. Okay. And it defaults to NSF3, which is what we want. Okay. Go ahead and click next, and then we go ahead and click finish. And there it is, showed up right away. Sometimes you have to refresh to see it, but it's right away. Now it's just like any other data store. We can browse it. You can right click and browse. There's also a browse data store button here. Let's go see if there's anything on it. Oh, there is. There's some old stuff from a previous class. What I like to do when I create data stores is I like to go ahead and create directories and remove directories just to be sure I can read and write to it. Okay. Well, good deal. Let's just review our notes. Did we get everything? Looks like we did. So let me wrap up this video, and we'll come back in and we'll move into iSCSI. And with iSCSI, I also want to take over to the server and let you look at the setup side on the server for iSCSI. So let me wrap up this video, and I'll see you in our discussion about iSCSI.